When the Millionaire CEO leaned over the conference table and called her the company's mascot, the room froze. No one dared breathe. But in that silence, the moment that would end his career had just begun. The day had started like every other one, except for the knot in Amara's stomach. She had been awake since 5 a.m., her wheelchair parked neatly by her bed, her laptop glowing faint blue in the dimness of her small apartment. The city outside still slept, but her thoughts raced ahead. Amara adjusted her blazer for the 5th time, even though it already fit snug across her shoulders. In the mirror, she brushed down a stray curl. She whispered to herself, "You belong here. Don't let them see you doubt." Her mother's voice drifted in from the kitchen. "Baby girl, eat something before you go." "I can't, Mama. If I eat, I'll be sick." Her mother appeared in the doorway, leaning on the frame. Worn but strong, she had worked double shifts for years just to give her daughter this chance. "Then at least take the apple. Fuel your brain." Amara forced a smile, took the apple, and tucked it into her bag. She knew her mother worried about her, worried that this glossy skyscraper internship might be too harsh, too cruel. But Amara wasn't about to prove the doubters right. Not after years of teachers lowering expectations, classmates whispering about her wheelchair, and strangers giving her pity smiles. She wheeled herself out the door, her mother's proud eyes following. By the time Amara reached the company tower, the morning sun glinted against walls of glass and steel. Inside, the lobby smelled of polished marble and espresso. Employees hustled past in sleek suits and sharp heels, their ID badges swinging with importance. She swiped her badge nervously, heart thudding as the security gates clicked open. Elevators whooshed. Somewhere on the top floor sat the man she'd only seen in magazines. Damian Cross, CEO, billionaire, charmer, ruthless visionary. She had no idea yet what kind of shadow he could cast. Upstairs, Damian Cross adjusted his tie in his office mirror. His reflection stared back at him. Tall, handsome, immaculately put together. To the world, he was the very image of success. To himself, he was a king surveying his castle. "Mr. Cross," his assistant chirped from the doorway, "the board's waiting in the main conference room." He smirked. "They're always waiting for me." Walking briskly, Damian exuded control. Employees stiffened when he passed, bowing their heads slightly, speaking only when spoken to. He thrived on that. Power wasn't just about money, it was about fear. As he entered the conference room, laughter died down. Executives straightened in their chairs. Damian liked that. Control. Always control. "Good morning, everyone," he said smoothly, lowering into the head seat. "Let's make this quick. I have a lunch with investors who actually matter." The room chuckled nervously. Meanwhile, on the lower floors, Amara was being briefed on her assignment. She sat in a small office with Linda, a mid-level manager who always seemed rushed but kind. "You're bright, Amara. Your work samples were impressive. But," Linda hesitated, "you've been placed on a special rotation. You'll be shadowing the CEO himself." Amara blinked. "Mr. Cross? Personally?" Linda nodded. "Yes, it's unusual, but he likes to test interns." "Test?" Linda's mouth pressed into a line. "Just keep your head down, do your work, don't let him rattle you." Something uneasy stirred in Amara's chest, but she forced herself to nod. "I can handle it." Her first assignment came sooner than she expected. That very afternoon, she was summoned to the top floor. Her wheelchair hummed softly against the thick carpet as she rolled toward the glass-walled boardroom. The door loomed like a portal to another world. Inside, she could hear voices, deep, commanding, confident. Then laughter. Then silence. A voice, sharp as glass. "Send her in." Amara took a breath, steadied her trembling hands, and pushed through the door. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Mostly men. Expensive suits. Papers shuffled. Laptops glowed. At the head of the table sat Damian Cross. His gaze flicked to her, then lingered on the wheelchair. A smirk touched his lips. "Ladies and gentlemen," Damien drawled, "our new intern has arrived." He leaned back, folding his hands behind his head. "Say hello to our mascot." The words sliced through the air. The room froze. No one dared breathe. Amara's throat tightened, her cheeks burning hot. She saw executives glance at each other, then quickly look away. No one spoke. No one defended her. In that silence, Amara's heart pounded so loud she swore it shook the table. And though no one realized it yet, the moment that would end Damien Cross's career had just begun. If you were Amara in that boardroom, mocked in front of powerful people, would you stay silent to protect your future or speak up right then? Comment below. I'd love to know. The word mascot hung in the air like smoke no one wanted to breathe. Amara's lips parted, but no sound came. Her hands clenched the rims of her wheelchair, fingers trembling as if holding back tears through sheer grip. She willed herself not to break, not here, not in front of him. Damien Cross's smirk deepened. "Relax, people," he said, his voice oozing charm. "I'm only joking. Lighten up. A little fun never killed anyone." Nervous laughter trickled around the table, thin and false. No one dared challenge him. Some shuffled their papers, pretending to focus elsewhere. But one person didn't laugh. From 3 seats down, a man in a gray suit, Ethan Ward, a mid-level manager, glanced at Amara. His brow furrowed, a silent question in his eyes. "Are you okay?" Amara blinked rapidly and looked down at her notes. She didn't want pity. She wanted respect. Damien's voice cut through her thoughts. "Since our new intern is here, let's test her out. Amara, is it? Yes. Give me the quarterly revenue projections. Right now. Don't look at your notes. Tell me what you know." Her heart stopped. She had studied the reports all night, but to recite them cold in front of 12 senior executives? On her very first day? Her mind scrambled. She opened her mouth, words spilling haltingly. Revenue in Q1 showed steady growth in consumer markets. Approximately... Damien interrupted with a chuckle. "Approximately? This is business, not guesswork." Heat flushed her cheeks. "Approximately 8% increase year over year," she pushed out, forcing steadiness into her voice. The room went silent. She risked a glance up. Damien's smirk had faded slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Well," he said, sitting back, "looks like the mascot does have teeth." The room chuckled again, more genuine this time. A few executives even nodded as if surprised. But the damage was already done. When the meeting finally adjourned, Amara wheeled herself quickly toward the exit, desperate to escape the weight of their stares. "Amara!" Damien's voice snapped behind her. "Stay, I want a word." Her stomach dropped. The others filed out quickly, grateful to be dismissed. Only Damien, Amara, and Ethan remained. Damien strode toward the window, gazing out at the sprawling city skyline. "You know," he said casually, "some interns take years to get noticed by me. You've managed it in 1 day. Impressive." Amara tightened her grip on the chair's rims. "I wasn't trying to—" "Oh, don't get defensive." He turned, his smile sharp as a blade. "I like to see how people handle pressure. Consider it training." Her mouth went dry. Training? Humiliation felt like anything but. Ethan cleared his throat softly. "Mr. Cross, if I may—" Damien shot him a glance. "You may not. This is between me and my intern." Ethan fell silent, jaw tight. Amara forced herself to meet Damien's eyes. "I'm here to work, sir, not to be tested for amusement." Her voice shook, but the words were steady. For a split second, Damien's eyes flickered. Surprise? Amusement? It was hard to tell. Then he laughed. "Spirited. Good. You'll need that spirit." He waved a hand dismissively. "That's all. You can go." Outside the boardroom, Ethan caught up to her. "Hey, Amara, right? Don't let him get under your skin. That's just how he operates." She bristled. That's supposed to make it okay? No, Ethan admitted, lowering his voice. It's not okay. But I've been here long enough to know, you fight him head on, you'll lose. Just pick your battles. Amara's chest tightened. She hated the truth in his words. Then maybe the problem is that no one's fighting at all. Ethan studied her, something like respect flickering in his eyes. Maybe. That evening, back in her tiny apartment, Amara sat with her laptop on her knees, staring at spreadsheets she could barely see through her tears. Her mother fussed in the kitchen, unaware of what had happened. Amara wanted to scream, to quit, to disappear, but instead, she opened her notebook and began writing. Every word Damien had said, every cruel smirk, every silence that followed. She didn't know why, maybe to prove to herself that it was real, maybe so she wouldn't forget. Her hand trembled as she wrote, "I won't let him win." She didn't know it yet, but that single promise would carry her through the storm to come. Meanwhile, Damien Cross sat in his penthouse office, sipping bourbon. He replayed the boardroom moment in his head, not with guilt, but with satisfaction. The way the room had frozen, the way she had flushed, the way no one dared speak against him. Yes, control. Always control. But somewhere deep, buried under years of ego and steel, something had unsettled him. The flash of defiance in her eyes. It irritated him more than he cared to admit. The next morning, Amara arrived at the office earlier than anyone else. The halls were still dim, the hum of printers filling the silence. She parked her chair at her desk and stared at the spreadsheets on her screen until the numbers blurred. Her eyes were swollen from lack of sleep. All night she had replayed Damien's words, each one cutting deeper with every echo. Mascot. Training. Spirited. She pressed her palms against her thighs, whispering to herself, "Ignore him. Do the work. That's how you'll prove them wrong." It wasn't courage. It was survival. By mid-morning, the office buzzed with energy. Phones rang, heels clicked, and voices murmured in glass-walled rooms. Amara moved quietly among them, delivering reports, double-checking formulas, answering curt emails. At noon, an email pinged. "Amara, bring the financial risk analysis to my office, now! D. Cross." Her pulse quickened. She grabbed her folder, adjusted her blazer, and rolled toward the elevator. Damien's office was vast, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, shelves lined with awards, a desk bigger than Amara's entire kitchen table. He barely glanced up when she entered. "You're late." She blinked. "I came as soon as I got your email, sir." "Excuses." He took the folder from her and flipped through it. Not terrible. But next time, use sharper language. Investors don't like timid phrasing." He tossed the folder onto the desk, papers spilling. "Clean it up." Amara bent forward to gather the pages, but her chair made it awkward. Her fingers brushed against the carpet, fumbling. Damien leaned back in his chair, watching. A smirk tugged at his mouth. "What's the point of being ambitious if you can't even reach the floor?" The words stung like a slap. Amara froze, papers half gathered in her hands. Her throat ached with unshed tears, but she forced her expression blank. "Understood, sir," she whispered, stacking the papers with trembling fingers. Damien chuckled and turned back to his computer, already dismissing her. In the hallway, Amara nearly collided with Ethan. He noticed her flushed face, the stack of papers clutched too tightly. "What happened?" he asked quietly. "Nothing." "Amara." She shook her head, her voice sharp. "I don't need your pity." Ethan held her gaze unflinching. "I'm not offering pity. I'm offering honesty. Cross is toxic. You don't have to pretend it's fine." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "If I complain, I lose this internship. If I stay quiet, I keep a chance at my future. Tell me, Ethan, what choice do I have?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe more choices than you think, but you have to trust someone." Amara looked away, wheeling past him before he could say more. That night, she sat at her kitchen table eating cold noodles from a takeout container. Her mother asked about her day. "Fine," Amara lied. "Busy." Her mother frowned. "You look tired." "I'm fine," she repeated too quickly. But when she was alone in her room, she buried her face in her pillow and sobbed silently, careful not to let her mother hear. Damien, meanwhile, lounged in a leather chair at a private club, sipping whiskey while investors laughed at his jokes. To them, he was brilliant, unstoppable. They admired his wit, his sharp tongue. He never told them the targets of his wit were interns, assistants, anyone too powerless to fight back. In his mind, cruelty wasn't cruelty, it was a test, a way to weed out the weak. And Amara? He told himself she was no different. But when her defiant eyes flashed in his memory, he scowled into his glass. Something about her refusal to crumble unnerved him. The next day, Amara worked twice as hard. She delivered flawless reports, triple-checked numbers, stayed late. She told herself, if I excel, he'll have nothing left to mock. But excellence only seemed to fuel his cruelty. He interrupted her mid-sentence during presentations. He made offhand remarks about her extra chair. He excluded her from lunches with the team. Each jab chipped away at her, like stones thrown at fragile glass. Still, she endured. Until one afternoon, while she struggled to transfer a heavy stack of files from the copy room, the door swung open. Ethan stepped in, eyes narrowing at the sight of her strained arms. "You shouldn't be hauling this alone. Let me—" "I said I can handle it," she snapped, her voice cracking. Silence hung heavy between them. Then Ethan spoke softly. "Maybe you can, but you don't have to." Her eyes burned. She wanted to believe him, but belief felt dangerous, like leaning over a cliff. So instead she turned away, whispering, "Please, just let me do this." As Ethan walked out, his fists clenched. He hated seeing her break quietly, hated how no one else seemed to care, and for the first time he wondered, not if Damien Cross would fall, but when. Have you ever stayed silent when someone hurt you, just to protect your future or peace? Do you think Amara is making the right choice by resisting quietly, or is it only fueling Damien's power? Let me know in the comments. The email came late on a Thursday evening, long after most employees had gone home. Urgent. All hands on the merger proposal. Weekend deadline. Intern included. D. Cross. Amara read it 3 times, her stomach dropping further each time. She had been praying for rest, but instead, she was being summoned into the lion's den. By Friday night, the top-floor conference room was buzzing with tension. Laptops glowed, empty coffee cups piled high, voices barked across the table. At the head, Damien Cross ruled like a general in battle, snapping orders, slamming charts onto the table, demanding instant answers. "Ward," he barked at Ethan, "I need the risk assessment in 5 minutes." "Yes, sir," Ethan said evenly, though his jaw was tight. "And you," Damien's eyes slid to Amara, "compile the competitor profiles. Don't slow us down." Her chest tightened, but she nodded, wheeling toward the corner of the table where she could spread her papers. Hours blurred. The glow of screens strained their eyes. The stale air reeked of coffee and exhaustion. Amara worked furiously, fingers flying across the keyboard, refusing to give Damien a reason to dismiss her. But every time she passed him a report, he found a way to cut it down. "This is sloppy. Do you even know what synergy means? You're lucky I'm patient." Each word sank like lead in her chest. By midnight, she excused herself to the restroom. Alone in the mirror's harsh light, she whispered, "You're stronger than this. Don't break. Not here." She dabbed at her red eyes, reapplied lip gloss, and forced herself back out. When she returned, Damien was standing over her chair, rifling through her printed notes. "Interesting," he said without looking up. Your formatting's off. Investors hate inconsistency. Amateur mistake. Amara's pulse spiked. Sir, Ethan cut in, voice firm. Actually, Cross, her data's the most thorough we've got on the table. I've been cross-checking. She's ahead of half the analysts in this room. The air shifted. Heads turned. A few associates exchanged wary glances. Damien's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked from Ethan to Amara. Then he chuckled, low and sharp. Ward, don't get sentimental. I know you've got a soft spot for strays. The words stung like acid. Amara's nails dug into her palms beneath the table. Ethan's expression didn't waver. Respectfully, sir, I've got a soft spot for competence, and hers speaks for itself. The silence stretched. Damien's gaze lingered on Ethan, then on Amara. For the first time, his smirk faltered, just slightly. Fine, he said, waving a dismissive hand. Back to work. But the edge in his voice told them both he wasn't used to being challenged. As the night wore on, fatigue settled over the room like fog. Executives trickled out, leaving only a core team, including Damien, Ethan, and Amara. At 3 a.m., Amara's head bobbed, her eyelids heavy. She jolted awake to find a paper cup of coffee placed beside her laptop. She glanced up. Ethan stood a few feet away, pretending to read a chart. He didn't look at her, didn't say a word. But she felt the gesture like a lifeline. For the first time that night, the corners of her mouth twitched into the faintest smile. By dawn, the sky outside turned pale pink. The proposal draft was complete, charts stacked neatly, files zipped and sent. Damien finally stood, stretching his arms like a conquering king. Well, gentlemen and lady, we've got something workable. Barely. His gaze landed on Amara, deliberate. Don't think one long night earns you respect. This business doesn't care about feelings or handicaps. It cares about results. Amara swallowed hard. Then I'll keep giving results. Something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance? Amusement? But before he could speak, Ethan cleared his throat. Maybe the business doesn't care about people, but we do. Again that silence. Heavy. Charged. Damien stared at Ethan a moment too long before storming out, muttering something under his breath. Amara sat back in her chair, utterly drained. The city outside sparkled awake, commuters flooding the streets. She felt small, bruised, exhausted. But somewhere deep inside, a seed had been planted. Because in a room where her existence had been treated like a joke, someone had quietly, stubbornly stood beside her. And for the first time, she wondered if she wasn't fighting entirely alone. Saturday morning sunlight streamed weakly through Amara's blinds, but she didn't notice. She sat motionless at her kitchen table, laptop closed, untouched tea cooling by her elbow. She was supposed to be resting after the all-nighter. Instead, her mind replayed every barb, every laugh, every silence. The word stray clung to her like a stain she couldn't wash off. Her mother peeked in from the doorway. Baby, you've been sitting there for an hour. Talk to me. Amara forced a smile. It's just work, Mama. Long night. But her mother's eyes were sharp. She came closer, brushing a hand over Amara's curls. Don't let that man break you. I've seen you rise from worse. The words lodged in Amara's chest. Worse, yes. She knew worse. Later that afternoon, she found herself on a bench outside the building, waiting for Ethan. He'd sent a text. We need to finish the revisions together. Meet me at 2. The air was crisp, carrying the sound of traffic and the smell of street food from a cart nearby. She tapped her fingers against her chair's armrest, nerves fluttering. When Ethan appeared, he held 2 coffees. He offered one without a word. She took it, their fingers brushing briefly. For a moment, they just sat there, sipping in silence. Finally, Ethan said softly, what he said last night. It wasn't okay. Her throat tightened. She stared straight ahead. It's not the first time I've been someone's punchline. Ethan glanced at her, waiting. She drew in a shaky breath. I was 16. Car accident. I was with my cousin. He didn't make it. I did. But not the same way. One second I was running track, dreaming of scholarships. The next I couldn't walk. Her voice broke, but she pushed on. Kids stopped calling. Teachers treated me like I'd lost my brain along with my legs. Even family tiptoed around me. It was like I'd disappeared, but in plain sight. She blinked back tears, forcing a smile that hurt. So when Damian Cross calls me a mascot, it's not new. It's just louder. Ethan's jaw tightened, eyes dark. You're not invisible, and you're sure as hell not anyone's mascot. Something in his tone made her chest ache. It wasn't pity, it was belief. Meanwhile, across the city, Damian Cross sat in his penthouse living room, staring at a photo on the mantel. His father, stone-faced in a gray suit, stood with an arm slung stiffly around a younger Damian. The boy in the photo, 10 years old, smile too wide, eyes too hopeful, looked like a stranger. Damian poured himself another drink. His father's voice rang in his memory. Weakness is unforgivable. If you want respect, you take it. If you want love, you're a fool. He had built an empire on those words. But now, for the first time, they grated against him like shards of glass. Why had that intern's eyes unsettled him so much? Why did her defiance feel like a threat? He scowled, pushing the photo face down. He didn't have time for ghosts. Back on the bench, Amara laughed weakly through her tears. I don't want to be anyone's inspiration either. I just want to be normal. Ethan shook his head. Normal is overrated. You're more than that. You're... He stopped, searching for the right word. You're exactly who this place needs, even if they don't know it yet. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was gentle, healing. Amara looked at him, really looked. His tired eyes, the way his tie was loosened, the sincerity etched in his face. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel entirely alone. That night, Amara opened her notebook again, but instead of just recording Damian's cruelty, she began writing pieces of her own story. Memories, truths, pain she'd never spoken aloud. She wrote about the track meets she'd never run again, the hospital nights she'd stared at the ceiling, wondering if her life had ended before it had begun, the cruel jokes that had followed her through college. And she wrote about Ethan's words. You're not invisible. She closed the notebook with trembling hands. Maybe, just maybe, she believed him. Excellent. Now we're stepping into Act 6, emotional bonding, 900 to 1,000 words. This is the calm before the storm, the moment of warmth, laughter, and fragile connection that gives the audience hope. Here, Amara and Ethan grow closer, sharing vulnerabilities and glimpses of happiness. Damian will linger in the background, his shadow still present, but this act focuses on the possibility of healing and unexpected love. The office was unusually quiet on Monday morning. The chaos of the merger had settled into a nervous lull, executives walking briskly with coffee cups, their eyes shadowed from lack of sleep. Amara rolled into the break room, craving caffeine more than air. To her surprise, Ethan was already there, leaning against the counter, stirring sugar into his mug. He glanced up. Morning. You survived. She chuckled weakly. Barely. Though I think my bloodstream is 80% coffee now. Good, he said, sliding a mug toward her. Then this should keep you at 95. She raised an eyebrow, but took it. Careful. You keep this up, I might start thinking you're actually nice. For the first time since she'd met him, his smile was unguarded. Later that day, while most of the staff buried themselves in spreadsheets, Ethan appeared by Amara's desk. Come with me, he said simply. She frowned. Where? You'll see. Before she could argue, he was already walking toward the elevator. Against her better judgment, curiosity won. She wheeled after him. They ended up on the rooftop. The city stretched out beneath them, endless glass towers catching the afternoon light, streets pulsing with life. Amara gasped. I didn't even know this was here. Most people don't, Ethan said, resting his hands on the railing. When the noise gets too loud down there, I come up here. Reminds me there's more than just deadlines and egos. She wheeled closer, letting the breeze whip through her curls. For the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe. Ethan turned to her, his voice quieter now. Can I tell you something? I almost quit once. A few years ago, Cross was tearing everyone down and I thought, why am I even here? Then I realized, if everyone decent leaves, all that's left are people like him. Amara studied him. His honesty felt like a gift. So you stayed? He nodded. I stayed. But it gets lonely, trying to hold the line by yourself. Her chest tightened. She understood that loneliness more than he could know. That evening, Ethan walked her out of the building. They stopped by a food truck parked on the corner, the smell of fried chicken filling the air. You ever tried these? Ethan asked, ordering without waiting for her answer. She laughed as he handed her a paper basket. Street food in a suit? Bold move. Hey, don't knock it till you try it. They sat on the curb, eating greasy fries, laughing over nothing. For the first time in years, Amara laughed so hard she had to wipe tears from her cheeks. It felt dangerous, this lightness, this ease. But it also felt necessary. As the sun dipped low, Amara grew quiet. Ethan, what if I can't make it here? What if Cross is right about me? Ethan's eyes softened. He set down his food. Listen to me. Cross is wrong about a lot of things, especially you. You've already proven more in a week than some analysts have in years. You've got grit, brains, and heart. That's more valuable than any MBA. Her throat tightened, tears threatening again. Why are you being so kind to me? He hesitated, then said simply, because someone should be. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken truths. Amara felt her heart stumble, unsure if it was fear or hope she was feeling. Back in her apartment that night, she lay awake, replaying the rooftop, the laughter, the way Ethan's gaze lingered on her just a second too long. She pressed her hands against her chest, whispering, "Don't fall. Don't you dare fall." But deep down, a seed of love had been planted, fragile yet undeniable. Across town, Damien sat alone in his penthouse again. Reports and contracts lay scattered on his desk, untouched. His glass of bourbon sat full. For once, he had no appetite for it. Instead, he found himself staring out over the city, thinking of the way Amara had stood her ground, the way Ethan had defended her. It irritated him. It threatened him. But beneath the irritation was something far more dangerous, the faintest whisper of envy. Because somewhere deep inside, Damien Cross knew he had never been loved the way Ethan had just begun to love her. Do you think Ethan's kindness is the start of real love, or just friendship in disguise? Have you ever felt that scary shift between the two? Share your thoughts below, like and subscribe. The following week, tension returned to the office like a storm cloud. The merger presentation was approaching, and Damien Cross was more ruthless than ever. Amara walked into the boardroom with her head high, notebook in hand, rehearsing Ethan's words in her mind. You've got grit, brains, and heart. She would prove herself. She had to. The presentation began. Executives filed in, suits crisp, eyes sharp. Ethan sat beside Amara, offering her the faintest nod of encouragement. Damien strode to the front, commanding the room with his usual cold charisma. We're here to finalize the proposal that will define this company's future, he announced, and I expect perfection. He began flipping through slides, rattling off numbers. Then he stopped, frowning. Ward, he snapped, why is this projection off by 2%? Ethan leaned forward. That's not an error. It's an adjustment based on the competitor's latest filing. Amara caught it last night. A murmur rippled through the room. Damien's eyes cut to Amara. You altered my projections? Her stomach dropped. Yes, sir. The numbers didn't align and I thought... You thought? Damien's voice cracked like a whip. You're an intern. You don't think. You follow. The words sliced through her, but before she could speak, Ethan interjected. She was right, Cross. Her correction saved us from presenting outdated data. Gasps circled the table. A few executives glanced at one another. Damien's face hardened, his jaw ticking. Get out, he said quietly. Everyone froze. Damien's eyes burned into Ethan's. If you can't respect the chain of command, you don't belong in this room. Leave. The silence was suffocating. Ethan hesitated, his fists clenched at his sides. Amara's heart pounded. Please don't go. Please. But after a long moment, Ethan stood. He looked at her, eyes filled with apology, then turned and walked out. Amara sat in stunned silence, the walls of the room closing in. Damien turned his attention back to her. You think you're clever, he said softly, only for her to hear. But you're nothing without people like Ward defending you, and now you've cost him his place. Her breath caught. Shame, guilt, and rage tangled inside her. When the meeting ended, she rushed out, desperate to find Ethan. She caught up with him in the lobby. Ethan, I'm so sorry. He shook his head, cutting her off. Don't. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. Tears stung her eyes. He targeted you because of me. Ethan's voice rose, sharper than she'd ever heard. No, Amara. He targeted me because I stood up to him, and maybe I shouldn't have. The words felt like a slap. So what? You regret defending me? I regret putting you in his line of fire, he said bitterly. Maybe you were right. You don't need anyone, not me, not anyone. Her chest cracked open. Don't say that. But he was already walking away, his shoulders rigid, his face unreadable. That night, Amara sat alone in her apartment, her notebook open but blank. Her mother knocked softly, but Amara didn't answer. The words replayed in her head like poison. Not me. Not anyone. For the first time since starting at Cross Enterprises, she wondered if she had been foolish to believe she could belong here. Foolish to believe someone like Ethan could care. She closed the notebook, whispering into the silence. I was wrong. Across town, Ethan sat at a bar nursing a drink, his tie loose, his eyes hollow. His mind replayed Amara's face, the hurt in her eyes, the tremble in her voice. He hated himself for the words he'd said, but more than that, he hated how powerless he felt against Damien. Damien, meanwhile, sat in his penthouse, staring at the city lights. For once, victory felt empty. Because deep down he knew he hadn't just broken an intern. He had broken something far rarer, a bond that reminded him of everything he'd buried, and though he wouldn't admit it, the silence of his apartment felt heavier than ever. Have you ever said something in anger that you wished you could take back? Do you think Ethan and Amara can recover from this, or is the damage too deep? Share your thoughts below. The city pulsed with life, but Amara's apartment was silent. She sat at her desk, staring at the closed notebook that usually held her thoughts. For the first time since starting it, she couldn't bring herself to write. Ethan's words echoed in her chest. Not me. Not anyone. She wheeled over to the window, watching cars crawl along the street below, people rushing, living, belonging. And she wondered, was Damien right? Was she truly just a burden, carried by others until they grew tired? Her mother's voice from the kitchen broke through the silence. You're awfully quiet tonight. I'm fine, Amara whispered, though the ache in her throat betrayed her. Her mother stepped into the room, folding her arms. You're not fine. I know that look. Baby, don't let that man, or any man, make you doubt who you are. Amara swallowed hard. What if I don't know who I am anymore? Her mother's eyes softened. She walked closer, kneeling so they were eye level. You are my daughter. You are alive when you weren't supposed to be. You've been broken, and you've rebuilt yourself. That's who you are. Don't you ever let anyone take that from you. Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. Her mother pulled her into a hug, her voice steady against her ear. The question isn't whether you're enough. It's whether you're brave enough to love yourself, and maybe brave enough to let someone else love you too. Across town, Ethan sat in his dark apartment, his head in his hands. The drink on the table had gone untouched. He replayed the moment in the lobby over and over, each word striking like a hammer. Maybe you don't need anyone, not me, not anyone. He hadn't meant it. God, he hadn't meant it. But fear had spoken louder than truth, fear that he couldn't protect her, fear that Damien would crush them both if they stood together. He thought of his father, stern, dismissive, always reminding him that feelings were weakness. He had spent years trying not to become that man, but now with Amara, he had failed anyway. The silence pressed in. Finally, Ethan picked up his phone. His thumb hovered over her name, but he didn't press it. Not yet. The next morning at work, the air felt colder. Amara kept her head down, avoiding Damien's gaze. Ethan wasn't there, suspended from meetings, his desk cleared of files. The loneliness was suffocating. Every glance from coworkers felt like pity, every whisper sounded like judgment. At lunch, Amara wheeled outside, desperate for air. She found herself staring at her reflection in the glass doors, her own eyes red, her posture slumped. "Who are you?" she whispered. Her reflection gave no answer, but in her chest, her mother's words echoed. "Don't you ever let anyone take that from you." She straightened her shoulders. Maybe she couldn't control Damien. Maybe she couldn't undo the hurt between her and Ethan, but she could choose who she would be, and she chose not to be silent anymore. That night, Ethan found himself outside Amara's building, heart pounding. He didn't even remember how he got there, just that his feet had carried him while his mind screamed at him to turn back. He stood on the sidewalk staring at the glow of her window. Should he go up? Should he leave her in peace? He pulled out his phone again. This time he typed a message. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please let me explain." He hovered over send. His chest tightened. Vulnerability had never been his weapon. It had always been armor he never dared take off. But with her, maybe it wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the only way forward. He hit send. Upstairs, Amara's phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, expecting another meaningless notification. But when she saw his name, her heart stopped. She read the message once, twice. Her hand trembled. She thought of all the reasons to ignore it, to protect herself, to stay safe in the walls she'd built. But another thought rose louder. What if love was worth the risk? Her mother's words returned again. Brave enough to let someone else love you too. Amara wiped her eyes, took a shaky breath, and began to type. Come tomorrow. We'll talk. In 2 different apartments, 2 broken people sat with the weight of their choices. For the first time, both had chosen not silence, not pride, not fear, but truth. And the cost of that truth would change everything. The next morning, Amara arrived at the office earlier than usual. The halls were quiet, the hum of fluorescent lights the only sound. Her stomach fluttered with nerves, but her eyes carried a new steadiness. She had made her choice. No more silence. By mid-morning, the boardroom was filled again. Damien strode to the front, sharp suit immaculate, his smile cold and commanding. He began the final rehearsal for the merger presentation, barking orders and flicking through slides. Amara sat near the end of the table, heart hammering. She could feel the weight of every gaze, waiting for her to shrink, to fold. But she didn't. When Damien dismissed her report with a wave of his hand, she spoke. Sir, you're ignoring key data that could jeopardize the deal. The room stilled. Heads turned. Damien's smile tightened. "Excuse me?" Amara lifted her chin. "I caught discrepancies in the revenue sheets. Again. If we present these numbers, the investors will see through it. The merger will collapse before it starts." A ripple of whispers filled the room. Damien's voice dripped with venom. "And why should we trust the word of an intern?" Amara's pulse raced, but her voice didn't waver. "Because last week, I was right. And this company cannot afford another mistake." The silence was deafening. Then, a voice from the doorway. "She's right." Every head turned. Ethan stood there, calm but resolute, a stack of papers in his hand. He walked into the room, dropping the papers onto the table. "Independent analysis confirms Amara's numbers. If you push forward with Cross's version, you'll tank investor confidence. She's the only one in this room who had the courage to say it." Shock rippled through the executives. A few even nodded, murmuring agreement. Damien's face darkened, but Ethan pressed on. "This company deserves leadership built on truth, not ego. And if protecting truth costs me my job, so be it." The dam broke. One by one, executives spoke up, quietly at first, then louder. "She's right. We've seen the errors too. It's reckless to ignore her." For the first time, Damien Cross's power cracked. His smirk faltered. "You're all spineless," he spat. "Listening to a crippled intern and a sentimental manager? Pathetic." Gasps echoed, but this time no nervous laughter followed. Instead, the chairman of the board stood. His voice was sharp. "That's enough, Damien. Your conduct has crossed the line for the last time. Effective immediately, you're relieved of your position." The room exploded with whispers. Damien's eyes widened, rage and disbelief battling in his face. "You can't!" But security was already at the door. As he was escorted out, his gaze landed on Amara. For the first time, there was no smirk, only hollow defeat. The boardroom emptied slowly, murmurs of shock and relief filling the air. Amara sat frozen, trying to process what had just happened. Ethan approached her, his expression soft. "You were incredible in there." Her throat tightened. "I was terrified." "Courage isn't the absence of fear," he said gently. "It's standing anyway." Their eyes met. The world seemed to narrow to just them. Ethan's voice dropped. "About what I said the other night, I was wrong. I let fear speak. The truth is, I don't regret standing up for you, not for a second." Tears filled Amara's eyes. "I thought you didn't want me to need you." He shook his head. "I don't want you to think you have to need me, but I want to be here. If you'll let me." Her heart swelled, breaking open and healing all at once. Slowly she reached for his hand. "Then stay." That evening, after the storm had passed, Ethan and Amara found themselves back on the rooftop where their bond had begun. The city glowed beneath them, lights stretching endlessly. Amara wheeled closer to the railing, breathing in the cool night air. Ethan stood beside her, hands in his pockets, stealing glances at her like he couldn't believe she was real. Amara smiled faintly. "Funny. A week ago I thought this place might break me. Now, I feel stronger than ever." Ethan's voice was quiet. "Because you are. You've been strong all along." For a long moment, they simply stood there, the city humming below, the stars faint above. Then Ethan turned, his voice unsteady but sure. "Amara, I think I—" He stopped, swallowed, tried again. "I think I'm falling for you." Her breath caught. She searched his face, the honesty in his eyes, the fear mingled with hope. And for the first time since her accident, she let herself believe she was worthy of being loved. She smiled through tears. "Then fall. I'll catch you." The rooftop was quiet, save for the sound of the city below. But in that quiet, something new bloomed, tender, fragile but fierce. Not pity, not charity, love. The kind that survives cruelty, defies fear, and chooses hope. Weeks later, Amara wheeled into her new office, her office. The board had offered her a permanent role, impressed not just by her intelligence but by her courage. Ethan knocked on her open door, leaning against the frame with a grin. "Ready for your first official day?" She grinned back. Meta, Crystal, sex more than ready. As he stepped inside, she thought of the girl who had once written, "I won't let him win." And she realized he hadn't, because love had. Do you believe that standing up for yourself can open the door to love? Or do you think love comes only when we least expect it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe, like, and share.